Waking up to the same old broadcast lies. Anchor smiling with their scripted alibis. World's a theater when we're all on cue. Directors in the dark deciding what's true. Flat earth theories hidden in plain sight. Moon landing faked under studio light. It's a fake facade, crumbling under the weight. News is propaganda served on a plate. New world order pulling all the strings. Alien cover-ups and secret kings. Rip off the mask, see the grand design. Conspiracy's the truth. Cross the line. Heart patrolling weather from afar. Mind control waves from your smartphone star. Celebrities, clones in a Hollywood plot. Elite bloodlines tying up the knot. Viruses engineered in labs unseen. Population control, that's the machine. Echoes of doubt in the silence of night. Question the narrative, ignite the fight. Break through the veil, expose the charade. Reality's a game they've overplayed. It's a fake facade, crumbling under the weight. News is propaganda served on a plate. New world order pulling all the strings. Alien cover-ups and secret kings. Rip off the mask, see the grand design. Conspiracy's the truth. Cross the line. Cross the line. Facade falling, truth rising high. No more illusions. Say goodbye.
Chalk one up to ASM Future again for another badass Archaics intro and outro song. That's the first time we've debuted that one, our Archaics. I put all the images together today. I've got several more to go through. He and I have some work to do in the future. But today we have a special guest. We are still talking about Professor Jiang. I still don't know how to pronounce it. There may be even a third video. Things are not what they appear to be. I understand he's very popular. I understand many of you really like and resonate with what he's saying, because that is exactly what this psyop is designed to do. I am not accusing Professor Jiang of saying anything wrong, just the opposite. But this goes deeper than you know. We've already had one guest, Sir Escanor, on the channel who gave us his vantage point, and CJB has a lot to show us as well today. He has a totally different vantage point because he's personally involved. I may do a third video about my own vantage point, but the truth of the matter is there's something very uncanny going on, and it can be very plainly and easily shown. But a lot of people emotionally triggered come in here trying to defend a man without hearing the actual opposing facts. You're in the wrong community for that, because we have zero tolerance. If you're not willing to hear and assess the data, get lost. If you're not going to come blow my chat up with a bunch of BS trying to defend somebody when you haven't actually even heard the substance of the accusations. So now, having said all that, I don't really have any announcements. I don't want to keep my guest backstage. We have a lot to discuss, and like I said, we may not be done in one video. We may cross over into another video. There's a lot going on in the field. There's a lot going on in social media. There is a hijacking of the alt media going on because mainstream media is no longer guiding the narratives, and there's a collapse in play right now. And there are agents in the field who are trying to guide the narrative of the collapse. This is what's going on, guys, and it's going on fast. So without any further ado, he'll have to forgive me. Christopher John Bjorkis or Bjorks. I'm not sure. He's going to educate me on how to say his last name, but he is widely known in the community. He is very suppressed, but he goes by CJB and CJB Books. How you doing, bro?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on. It is great to be with you.
Yeah, well, you've been coming up in my field for a lot. I mean, I've been seeing you. I've been trolling X and shit posting on X for about 4 years now, and because that's really all you can do. You can't. It's hard to take X seriously because the world in X, the digital world of X, is not the really real world we live in. So it's.
And I have dozens of instances where X itself has informed me that they are actively deboosting and suppressing my work, and this has been going on for 30 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. Max Egan was a guest in right here in Texas with me twice, and he literally showed me on BitChute how Google has it set up where they can go in and they can throttle a channel. They have that much control. He literally showed me how his subs were going down as they were going up, how the ticker worked. I was like, wow, they really are throttling you, man. So yeah, all these people are joining. After he and I did some videos together, he started getting a whole bunch of subs, but also in real time, he was watching how the ticker would go up and then all of a sudden disappear. It would start way down here. And then it would go up again, then it would disappear and go away. I was like, wow, they really are.
That's happened to me on X and on BitChute. I was one of the first people to be banned in Europe, and people could no longer from Europe visit my BitChute channel.
Wow.
And this was many years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, he showed it to me. I've heard people talk about it, but I actually sat at the table and watched the numbers. I mean, it takes about 5 minutes to sit there and watch because the numbers reappear and they're lower. I was like, wow. Yeah,
it's like a used car salesman with the odometer.
Yeah, they'll gradually go up, but they won't go up near as much as if they would have just never throttled the channel. And yeah, it's so crazy. It's so crazy, man. So
and the flip side of that is how this Jiang guy is being boosted and astroturfed to millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people.
Oh, I get it. So before you present and show your material, so I've kind of gone into his history a little bit to figure out when the transitional period was from when he was a no-name on YouTube. Nobody knew, nobody was listening to him. And then, early 2024, he starts, with the game theory, he starts going on. He was already on late 2023, but in 2024, he still wasn't really known. He didn't get his 2.2 million followers till late 2024 on the second Iran controversy. The one in June just got him people paying attention to him with a little 12-day war in June last year. Or July. But it really shocked me when I found out why he got boosted. These 3 predictions. It's just 3 core predictions he had made. And I was shocked to find out that these were the predictions because I'm personally cognizant not only of your research, but there are other people who made the exact same predictions years ago. And he didn't bring anything new to the table. And one of them was that Donald Trump would win the 2024 election. But anybody, that was the first main prediction. And it was like, anybody could have made that prediction. Hell, I made that
with a coin
prediction.
Toss. It's a 50-50 shot with a coin toss.
Well, not only that, but after during 4 years of the highly staged and comical Biden administration, it was a shoo-in that Trump was going to win.
That's Democratic Party ensured that Trump would win.
Absolutely. So it's dumb. But the second one was that the Trump administration would start a major war with Iran. Now, I know
which Netanyahu had been calling for from the 1980s onward.
Absolutely. Way before Professor Jiang ever come around, YouTube videos, X feeds, and newspapers all over in 2021, 2022, 2023, and early 2024 were already calling that. They were already calling it. So the third
I explained in 2006 that it was based on Jewish messianic prophecies related to the Sefer Zerubbabel, the prayer of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Avkat Rokel, which is translated into English in Johannes Buxdorf's The Jewish Synagogue, in the Zohar, and in the Talmud. And I explained exactly that Benjamin Netanyahu would play the role of Messiah, son of Joseph, and would launch this war. And I explained how Lebanon would be attacked at exactly the same time. And I did all that with just one blog post in 2006. I've been on top of this the whole 20 years, predicting precisely exactly when, how, and who would be involved in all of this. And it is farcical for them to present this as if he's some kind of Nostradamus or prophet simply by saying they were going to attack Iran. Everybody knew that.
Yeah, I agree. It's as a matter of fact, let's preface your presentation so people will know exactly where you're coming from. I'm going to show a file real quick because this is you have a lot to show us, but you're coming from a historical standpoint. You're coming from doing the actual research, but people don't realize that these two main predictions by Professor Jiang, they weren't really predictions at all. He was literally watching the news and reporting the next move because the news telegraphed exactly what they were fixing to do right before they did it. Weeks before he made his predictions on his YouTube channel, it was already reported in mainstream media that there was going to be a major U.S.-Israeli offensive attacking Iran. It was all telegraphed. So this started early in 2020 and 2021. They started talking about the United States, and these articles right here, like this is 2021. These articles go into depth about U.S.-Israel military exercises, how they're already planning. And some of them even given a window, 2024, 2025, 2026. But these articles were already in the field talking about this joint military push into Iran by Israel and the United States long before this Professor Jiang ever appeared on YouTube, before he even started his channel. So these aren't predictions. He literally watched the news. They give you explicit details in these articles about they never hid it from the public. Some of these are Israeli newspapers, but these are all 2022. Hell, even Galactic Federation, even the Galactic Federation knew it was going to happen. It's right here. So
it's great that you have all that documentation. In 2006. I exposed an article in the Israeli press, I think it was the Israeli Times, where Brigadier General Oded Tirah openly stated that he wanted to lobby the American president to attack Iran and that he would get Saudi Arabia to lobby the American president to attack Iran. And now it comes out in the news in 2026 that Saudi Arabia was being utilized to lobby and pressure Donald Trump, who is intimately tied in business deals with Saudi Arabia, together with his Chabad Lubavitch son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who is also involved heavily with Saudi Arabia. And they pressured Trump to engage in this attack. And people should understand that this has been a relentless, ongoing campaign from the 1980s, 1990s onward to get America to wage war on Iran. And it derives completely from ancient biblical prophecies, Ezekiel 38, involving Persia, leading into the war of Gog and Magog. And these people treat
would
that.
Influence Russia's involvement then. If you're referencing the Gog Magog eschatology, then they're trying to get Russia's involvement then.
Oh, absolutely. And Jiang is he's utilizing my work as camouflage, as a vehicle for his ruse to introduce all of these international communist Israeli Maoist plans through the venue, through the vehicle of my work, and trying to indoctrinate people into Maoist protracted war principles based upon what I'm saying to deflect attention from China. And even though he's talking about Israel, he's really deflecting from the racist and supremacist motivations of all this, which are revealed through their messianic apocalyptic prophecies. Now, he is talking, he probably picked it up from Alexander Dugin. He's talking about the Third Rome prophecy. which involves Russia superseding the Ottoman Empire and Constantinople, Istanbul, as Moscow becoming the third Rome and the third great empire. And that all fits in with Gog and Magog. They have been calling the Russian Empire Gog and Magog, and the Tsar of the Russian Empire, the Antichrist, since the time of Peter the Great. And at the same time that they were publishing all kinds of books about this end times eschatology, in Russia, they were convincing the Russians that the West and the Roman Catholic Church is Gog and Magog, and that the Pope is the Antichrist. And they have tried to get this behemoth of the Eurasianists to fight the Leviathan of the Western Roman Catholic Church and white Western Europeans to the death in a war of mutually assured destruction. And they created the entire nuclear system of mutually assured destruction themselves. They betrayed the United States and gave that technology and science to the Soviets, to the Russians, to the Chinese, to the North Koreans, Pakistanis, etc. They have been setting all this up for thousands of years. And you can see how I know what I'm talking about. I can specifically cite the historical, substantial basis for everything that I say. And all Jiang does is copy my conclusions and talking points and doesn't know what he's talking about. And when pressed, cannot substantiate anything. I can cite the books. I've done the research. I've derive the insights. This is all my work that he is ripping off.
Yeah, I'm listening to him in Christopher, when I'm listening to this guy, I'm hearing somebody who has memorized the talking points. I'm hearing somebody who has literally been briefed on what is acceptable to say and what not to say. But I don't feel like I'm listening to somebody that has any conviction whatsoever. There's no passion. There's no, this is what I really believe. It's almost, well, this is what I've memorized. There's no soul coming from this guy when I'm listening to his material. And I was kind of turned off. I was almost offended because so many people were sending me links to listen to this guy. And I'll go in there and I'll listen to him. And I kind of get offended, Christopher, because why did you send me a link to listen to a guy who's telling me things that were already said in the field 15, 20, and 25 years ago? I haven't heard anything new from this guy. I have heard the best talking points harvested from the best researchers in the field, rehashed into whiteboard presentations that don't provide anything novel. This is all old shit. And it's being presented to the community as if this is all new novel revelation. It is not. I don't know a single thing this guy has brought to the table that hasn't already been brought to the table by other people. I don't know.
And it's very dangerous that they are presenting him as a prophet. He is not only stealing my work on all of this geopolitics. I created this predictive model based on the idea that they themselves had engineered Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Freemasonry, and Marxism to arrive at the same eschatological conclusions and duping the Gentiles into voluntarily embracing all of their own destruction and participating in it. And I utilize that predictive model to predict everything that's been happening for the past 20 years and what's coming next. So what they are setting people up to do is to follow this guy like a cult leader and blindly follow whatever he says and bypass any kind of rational inductive and deductive analysis of what he is saying, to never challenge him on his sources or where all of this is coming from, and present him as if he's the lone voice to speak for everyone about this. When I can explain, for example, when Tucker Carlson was interviewing him, Tucker Carlson kept nudging him, asking him, why is it that they want to exterminate European people? And he refused to respond to it. I explained all that in 2006 in my book, The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein. I explained that they view European peoples as the reincarnated souls, as the next generation of the Romans of the Roman Empire who destroyed the Jewish Second Temple of Solomon and created the diaspora and sent the Jews into the Roman exile. And that was part of a plan that was laid out in Deuteronomy. And that's why one of the reasons why they created Christianity was to prime people to view Jesus Christ as a messianic figure, to abandon all of their ancestral gods, ancestral histories, and to create a worldwide Christian empire that at the end of the age of Pisces would be usurped and co-opted by greater Israel, by the Messiah, son of David, of the Jews, who would rule the world from Jerusalem. And I predicted that they would destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock to rebuild their third temple, and that they would commit genocide against the Amalekites, the Edomites, whom they view as the descendants of Esau through Rome. And he is copying all that, but he wouldn't point out the racist, supremacist perspective that the Amalekite whites have to be exterminated. Now, in the Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin, Folio 20b, it states that when the Jewish people have ingathered, have taken Palestine once again, they have to do three things. It is incumbent upon them. It is mitzvot. It is commandments that they must perform. They must anoint a king, David HaMelech, the Messiah, son of David, the King Messiah. They must exterminate Amalek, and they must rebuild the third temple of Solomon in that order. And knowing that enabled me to accurately predict all the things that they are now engaged in. And I predicted that they would try to take the land of greater Israel from the Nile to the Euphrates. I gave the biblical passage in Genesis related to the Abrahamic covenant, which is behind all of that. And I laid all of this out. And when he was pressed to explain why it is that there is white genocide being committed around the world, he would not respond. I suspect he is aware of all of my insights into that, which have been broadly disseminated for 20 years across the internet, but he covered it up.
Well, yeah, we hesitated to go further because it would betray the origin of the information. I get that. He did the same thing with me when he deliberately quoted several passages where I explained to my community that I believe that we are divine sparks of the oversoul and that we are connected to source by virtue of imagination, intuition, and empathy. And he hesitated. He said imagination. He said divine sparks. He said imagination and empathy and intuition, but he hesitated and didn't say empathy because it would have been it would have been so direct of a quote, no one would have ever believed him that he didn't get it from me. But I don't think it's just me and you and I. I think he is. Someone mentioned in the chat that he has also assimilated David Icke's material, some of David Icke's research from a long time ago as well. And it's, to me, it just what you're saying. I really want to comment on a whole bunch of different things, but I know I'm going to lose my community because a lot of people aren't well versed on what you're talking about. I am all the way in on the Amalekite. I want to ask you one question without boring my community on this. Do you think there's a correlate between the fact that the king, the ruler of the Amalekites in the biblical material, was always called Agag over a period of centuries? That was his official title. Do you think there is any type of correlate here between Agag and Gog and Magog?
There might very well be. He was a descendant of Esau, I think the grandson of Esau, and that is the link. And
well, in the Talmudic material, we have you're aware that the Jews hated the Romans. They hated them. They hated them not just for what was going on during the Roman period, not just because the Romans destroyed Jerusalem twice in AD 70 and then later in the Bar Kokhba rebellion. Both destructions of Jerusalem were due to failed messianic appearances, and it was like a shit stain on Judaism. And so a lot of people believe Christianity was created right after the failed Messianic appearance in AD 70, and Jerusalem was completely destroyed, and the Messianic prophecies did not come true, and the Jews were eating crow. So, do you think that? Have you come into contact with data in the older, in the like Midrashic text? In these texts, it describes the Romans as the Kittim. And the Kittim are the absolute descendants of a man named Zepho, who escaped Israelite. They flipped the script and says the Israelites were enslaving the Edomites, and this Edomite named Zepho escaped, made it to ancient Italia during the reign of Anius and King Anius, and there are Jewish texts. One of them is the Book of Jasher, where it literally talks, it's rabbinical. It talks about how the Romans are descended from the very descendants of Edom, Esau.
They are flipping the script. Edom converted to Judaism under John Hyrcanus long before the temple was destroyed. The Talmud places a Christ-like figure 1 century before Christ was to have appeared, and the Talmud talks about the beginning of the failure of the sacrifices on Yom Kippur of the scapegoat. Jesus Christ is the scapegoat. They created Jesus Christ obviously after the destruction of the temple, because
Thank you, man. You have no idea with how your statement bridges a whole bunch of my Christian my critical arguments, because prior to AD 70, we don't have a shred of evidence of Christianity anywhere in the world. Not a single document, not a single writer, nobody. You're right, man. That's good.
And Paul never mentions the destruction of the temple. So there were Gnostic and what you could call Christian texts prior to the destruction of the temple, but it related to the Logos and things occurring in the heavenly sphere.
I agree. Christianity in its earliest form was 100% Gnosticism. Absolutely.
Now, in terms of Jiang talking about divine sparks being contained in everyone, for many, many years, I have been talking about the great chain of being, Neoplatonism, Gnosticism, and Kabbalah, and the monad, the one, the Holy One, right, which emanates, and all of these emanation theories through the demiurge, the world soul, to the lesser gods, to humanity, down to the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the mineral world, and then the material world of chaos in which Satan reigns. And I have talked about how human beings sit in the middle of this scheme, and the Kabbalistic idea that Gentiles represent the Kelipotic vessels of the 7 vessels that were shattered in the creation of the world, and that they differentiate the world into 2 worlds, 2 mirrored worlds. One side, the Sitra Achra, is the evil other side of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. And Gentiles are said to be the descendants of Cain, who slept with Eve in the Garden of Eden and produced the Gentile race. And they believe that Cain and Abel were twins, and Abel had to be killed so that Seth could replace him. Seth is to be the descendants of the Shemites and the Jewish people, and they believe that they are on the holy side, the Sitra de Kedusha, opposite the Sitra Achra of the Gentiles, and that since the world was corrupted through this shattering of the Kelipotic vessels, they have to repair the world. They have to engage in tikkun olam and rectify the world. And the rectification of that world is to eliminate the evil other side of the Gentiles and the flawed creation of the demiurge, of Yahweh, and repair it so that they themselves can create the world themselves. And they call the present world Olam Hazeh, and they call the world to come Olam Haba. And that is what this is all about from a Kabbalistic perspective.
So with the word Olam mean eternal, what does it mean?
It means world, the world.
So
Olam.
OLAM does not have any connotations in Hebrew that would refer to timelessness or eternal.
It may, in the sense that the world is perceived in the reference frame of the one as being the Alpha and the Omega, the Aleph and the Tav. But my understanding of Olam in the context of Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba is that it represents the world. Olam Hazeh, the present world.
I know in Hebrew many words can have different meanings. I do have in my notes Olam. One of the connotations for Olam is unendingness. It is or eternal. I had not heard the word used in the context to describe the world, but you're describing a dichotomy in Judaism. They have two different separate notions about our reality, and they think that they're the ones that's going to fix it.
Absolutely, yes. And they believe that they are the divine sparks trapped within a shell or a husk, and they call that the Kelipa Noga. Noga being the shining, the spark inside the Kelipa, which is the shell or the husk, the Klipa.
Wow.
And they believe that the West, that America, is Amalek, which is the densest shell of these shattered Kelipotic vessels, which contain the divine light, the divine sparks. And just as a seed husk or the shell preserves and protects the pearl until it is broken apart and opens up and releases the light, releases the spark, it serves as protection. And understanding all that, in 2006, I predicted that they would create a global rise in anti-Semitism, and that all of the Middle Eastern wars were intended, the primary target of them was intended to be America, that they were deliberately self-consuming wars. So in creating the hegemonic state of Israel in the Middle East and expanding it out into greater Israel through the might of Amalek, the might of Satan, it would consume itself in the process, just as the shell or the husk of a fruit, as it ripens, eventually breaks apart and sheds. And then the seed, the pearl, the spark emerges and is released. And that is the religious perspective behind the practical perspective. In Kabbalah, everything is both mystical and religious and practical. It serves a practical function. The function of these wars is not so much to defeat Islam. They much prefer Islam to Christianity. It is to defeat the Roman Empire, the Fourth Empire, from the Babylonian to the Persian, to the Greek, to the Roman. You cannot have Rome rule the world and Judea rule the world at the same time.
Exactly.
So
I agree.
Amalek, the shell, has to be discarded and used up, ripening the fruit of the spark of Israel.
Yeah, I see it. I mean, even without all the Judeo-Gnostic connotations, geopolitically, I see exactly. I see exactly the agenda. All the migrants being funded to go into all Western nations. All the local municipal from the federal, state, and municipal laws are almost all anti-Western now. The double standards, that are held in our judiciaries now. White people get screwed over bad. Other people get a slap on the wrist. They can go on about their business. Yeah, you see it everywhere. So, do I agree?
And that is part of the prophecy that Edom, the West, has to be destroyed in order for the Messiah to appear.
I agree. I agree that's part of I agree that that's part of the prophecy. My only position, Christopher, is that every single time in history that they attempted to force the coming of a Messiah, they failed. And situational problems happened. They didn't realize Rome was as strong as it was twice. They didn't realize the Habsburgs were as strong. They didn't realize the Medicis were as strong. They didn't realize that Charles Martel, the hammer, was going to be as strong. Every time they have tried to force this, they have failed.
And they are keenly aware of that.
They're keenly aware of it. I will admit that this is the biggest push that these people have ever been involved in, and it's because we're now a technologically advanced society. They're able to do this, but this is the biggest push. But I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist for many reasons. I agree with you 100% that these people are on this agenda. This is the plan that they're doing. But I believe also that at the last minute, they're just as they have input all these finances and energy into this massive, incredible enterprise to fool the world into a Messiah that's coming. At the last minute, they're going to botch it like they've always done throughout history, because their ego-driven behavior is always their downfall every time.
And their messiahs are always lunatics. You mentioned Bar Kokhba and his failure against the Romans that got many, many Jews slaughtered. And he himself was cutting off the fingers of his own soldiers. We have David Elroy, another false messiah who failed and caused the Jews tremendous harm. Shabbatai Tzvi, built up great expectations in 1666 that he was the Messiah and would redeem Israel and restore them to Palestine. And then he became a fake Muslim, a crypto Jew, and created.
As soon as they were talking about cutting off fingers and toes, he converted to Islam in front of his Jewish following, and he pissed them off. Yeah, you're right. Say it's the same thing with Torquemada. Under the Spanish Inquisition, everybody thinks that the Spanish were sitting there torturing all these Jews, doing all this stuff. Listen, man, the Spanish were tired of their economy being siphoned, and they were trying to figure out where all the wealth was going. So Torquemada, who was Jewish, a Spanish Jew, Torquemada was torturing his own people to get the information. I mean, listen, I'm not worried about
Ignatius Loyola, Ferdinand II. We're also crypto Jews.
There they go. I'm just saying, I'm not even worried about the whole world's worried about, the Jewish power structure taking over. I'm not worried about it, because they've always put their foot in their mouth every single time. Right before they end up doing everything they're trying to accomplish, something else steps in unexpected and thwarts all their plans. So
if I may lend my insights into what you've just said.
Sure.
There are two things intimately tied up in all of that. One is the Jewish concept of the worthy generation. Whenever they fail to achieve what they want, they blame it on the Jewish people and say that they were not a worthy generation. And the Old Testament is replete with a pattern and a model of what is to happen to the Jewish people when they do not obey the Torah and worship the God of Israel. And that is that they should be attacked from the entire world, that they should be sent into exile, and that their holy temple should be destroyed. And that is all part of the plans that are coming up, that they are trying to have unfold on the world stage through their own deliberate actions, not by means of divine intervention. So we can anticipate that they are going to try to provoke all that. That's why they're provoking worldwide anti-Semitism. That's why they're creating a pariah state out of America, turning the whole world against America when the whole world viewed America so beautifully 20, 30 years ago. Now, in terms, you mentioned technology. They believe that there would be a 6,000-year period of the ripening of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Right. And that it would be the Gentiles who would ripen that fruit, and that the tree of knowledge of good and evil bore the curse of death. And that is why the Jewish people became the people of the book and refused to engage in science and technology or in the arts. That changed with the Mishnagdim and Moses Mendelssohn and what were they called? It's not halachim, it's something like that, where they created a Jewish Reformation on the model of the Christian Reformation. And they said that Jews could now eat at the same table with Christians. They basically destroyed many Orthodox principles, and they said that Jews could engage in study of science and participate in the arts. But that was all part of their plan, because they believed that the Renaissance And the Enlightenment had led to the ripening of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And when that fruit becomes ripe, it is now kosher for the Jews to consume, and it bears the curse of death, where it enables the Gentiles to destroy one another and kill each other off in mutually assured destruction. And that plan goes back again to the book of Job as a battle between Leviathan and Behemoth, the Muslims, the Eurasianists, the Marxists being Behemoth, and the Christians, the white Western Europeans, being Leviathan. That is why Alexander Dugin, together with the Leninists, refer to the UK and America, the seafaring powers, as the Leviathan, and the Eurasianists as the Behemoths, and want through chaos magic to instigate this war of mutually assured destruction as the war of Gog and Magog. And that's why he introduces the third Rome prophecy to kick all that off, because he wants Greece to wage war with Turkey over Cyprus and over Constantinople, Istanbul. That is to drive a wedge into NATO and to break apart the Western powers. They want to create parity between East and West so that when they fight as a sporting match, which the Jewish people are to watch, which it states in the Midrash Leviticus 13, 2 and 3, they want it so that we are on par with one another and completely destroy one another. That's why they created the system of mutually assured destruction. And that is where all this is headed. And that is the ripening of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because it provides the thermonuclear weapons so that the Gentiles can destroy one another. It also provides the genetic research and fertility research and reproductive research that enables the fulfillment of the ancient Jewish plan to artificially create homunculi that will be 600,000 immortal androgynous beings. Now, when the Jews engaged in the Exodus, they did so with 600,000 Jewish men and their families. Their goal, their stated goal in Kabbalah, is not to preserve all the Jewish people. I have been warning Jews from the inside of my heart for 30 years.
They always scapegoat themselves. They listen, in the parasite-host relationship, to maintain the parasite status, to have host nations support them and be able to siphon off of them, they are always self-sacrificing their own populations for all kinds of agendas.
They were behind Hitler. They were behind the Holocaust. I am warning you that in Zechariah, and I think Jeremiah, it says that 2/3 of Jews are to be exterminated in this.
That right there is there's a Zionist number, 33.3%, 2/3.
Yes, 66.66%. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. They are setting up to pit the entire world against Israel. They divided themselves. Israel Zongville, a famous political Zionist tied up with the Rothschild family, who came up with the play on the melting pot of America to miscegenate Americans, said that they had always divided Jewry into different camps, often into thirds, a third of Jewry in the Russian Empire, a third of Jewry in the Western European Empire, and a third of Jewry in Israel, so that if any one of the limbs, the branches of the Jewish family gets cut off, there will be another one to be preserved. And that is the model that they have utilized again and again. They kill off massive numbers of Jews. And I'm warning the Jews, have been for 30 years. They are being set up as well, and it's going to be horrific for them. All apostate Jews are slated to be exterminated. All messianic worshipers of Jesus are slated to be exterminated. This is an
unfolding pattern. Well, I mean, even in the 8th century, in the year 762, the Karaite movement took off. It splintered, and it started a crisis in Judaism because the ones that followed this guy, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he started the Karaite movement for the Jews in 762 AD. And he wanted to go back to the basic tenets of the Torah and he took a huge following with him that abandoned the old Pharisaic, the rabbinical, a bunch of the Talmudic material. They weren't with it. They didn't like what was in the Talmud. They didn't like what was being preached and what was done. So they splintered off, and the Karaite movement ended up being huge. But later on, they ended up being victimized as well. I mean, they always self-sacrifice their own populations.
And that's very similar to the Samaritans who rejected the later prophets and focused on Moses and created.
That's why they were demonized in the Christian literature.
Absolutely. Now, the Karaites, as you say, they rejected what Judaism calls the oral tradition, the Torah and the entire Tanakh, including all the prophets, is referred to as the written tradition. But they always maintained that they kept a secret, hidden oral tradition that was preserved by the Pharisees and by the scribes. And when they were sent into the diaspora, they started to write down the oral tradition so that it wouldn't be lost. And that became the Midrash, the Talmud, and later Kabbalah. Now, the Karaites were cited by a guy, I think his name was Abraham Firkovich, as representing a converted people, that they did not claim to be descended from the Judeans, and therefore they did not bear the curse in Matthew 27, where it talks about his blood be upon us and upon our children. So Firkovich in the Russian Empire utilized that as a pretext to say that the Karaites and also the converted Khazars don't bear that curse and therefore are not a threat to Western civilization. And then many people picked up on that and tried to say that the Khazars are the synagogue of Satan referred to in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9, but they couldn't have been because it's a much later
Man,
conversion.
thank you for making that point. I have told my community over and over, because when we're talking about we're talking about a bunch of Jewish intrigues and history and stuff, I like to quote Cicero. I like to quote where the Romans were having some severe problems with these people, and I like to quote the fact that it was widely known in the 6th and 7th century that it was late at night, Jews were opening the city gates open, man, so Muslims and the Moors could come in and conquer these European cities that had taken these Jews in long after the Roman Empire had banished them and kicked them out and destroyed Jerusalem. And people are always telling me, Jason, you don't understand, man. It's the Khazars. I said the Khazars didn't even exist. Kazakhstan hadn't even converted to Judaism yet. All the histories I'm quoting are way before that. So I'm glad you said that, man, because
they opened the gates to the Persians in the 600s, and then they created Islam shortly after, and Islam chased out the Persians. So they not only betrayed the Christians of Jerusalem by opening the gates to the Persians, they betrayed the Persians to the Arabs and to Muhammad. And it was brutal. And then they did the same thing in Toledo, and they allowed the Turks in city after city. They opened up the gates, despite how generous Christians were to them and how tolerant they were of them.
Yeah, man, that's pretty compelling. So, you had slides you wanted to present, or are you just going through them anyway?
Well, I want to show evidence that I have been saying these things and been the premier authority in the world, and that these are my unique novel insights from 20 years ago when I released a massive volume of work. I released my 3,000-page book, The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein, in 2006. I released my 600.
Hey, the screen's yours if you want to share anything.
So just looking at my videos, because Adam Green was plagiarizing my work, I put up things that I had said in 2006, primarily in interviews I did with an internet radio program called I Am the Witness, hosted by Daryl Bradford Smith and often co-hosted and managed by Eric Hufschmidt of the 9/11 exposure fame. And you can see in 2006, I was talking about Christian Zionism and how it was utilized as a psyop to bring about these messianic prophecies how it had been co-opted through the Schofield Bible, et cetera, et cetera. Reverend Ted Pike, there was a guy named Carlson, lots of people were talking about that long before 2006, and Jiang presents that as if that were something new. I predicted that there would be a global rise in anti-Semitism in order to artificially fulfill these prophecies to force an ingathering, an exodus of Jews from America. I said that they would follow that same exodus model of pilfering all the wealth of America. In the book of Exodus, it talks about how God made the Egyptians love the Jewish people and loan them all their gold and silver, all of their clothing, that they then stole in the Exodus, that this forms a repetitive pattern in history, and that they were about to do this to the United States. I predicted that they would make China replace the United States as a superpower eventually, and that they would force this ingathering by generating anti-Semitism around the world, just as they had done with Adolf Hitler. I desperately tried to warn Jews that this was coming because they have so much influence and power. I tried to utilize that to save not only them, but humanity. That's one of the reasons why I was silenced. I talked about the Messiah, that he was going to be anointed as king and rule the world from Jerusalem, that he would expand into greater Israel, and that there would be the war of Gog and Magog. But very significantly, I said that the war of Gog and Magog would be preceded by the attack on Iran, and I gave all the apocalyptic messianic prophecies, primarily Sefer Zerubbabel, that stated that. And I did that also on Wing TV with Scott Kafka. I think he called himself Victor Thorne, and Lisa Giuliani. I exposed the Kalergi plan very famously on Jeff Rentz, and Decentralized Party had clipped what I said back in 2007, and many people believe that's still the best exposition on the Kalergi plan. I, not Adam Green, talked about the Christianity trap, and that Christianity was generated to destroy Rome, Greece, and Egypt, and establish a messianic fervor and a suicidal intent among Christians to fulfill these prophecies themselves, because there were relatively few Jews and they had no military might. They usurped all the military might of the Romans by infecting them with Christianity. And I explained how the very early Gnostic cults that evolved into the Cathars and all of the subsequent Gnostic groups initially would refuse to bear children, which would wipe out the entire European race if it became Christian. They would abort their fetuses. They would engage in coitus interruptus. They would consume their own seminal fluid and menstrual waste. Those were all early Gnostic practices that evolved eventually into some of the Shabbatayan practices of child sacrifice and orgies. They were well known in the Roman and Greek and Egyptian worlds. The primary city of the Jews at that period, at the Second Temple, end of the Second Temple period, was Alexandria, Egypt, not Jerusalem. The major Jewish wealth was in the hands of Lysimachus, the most wealthy Jew in the world, brother to Philo Judaeus, Philo the Jew, who created Christianity out of the Middle Platonic idea of the Logos being a mediator.
I talked about Philo too, because there's whole passages in Philo that mirror things Paul said. So Philo's the original. It looks like Paul, the whole passages in the Pauline letters that almost mirror word for word passages in Philo.
Absolutely. And this became in the Christians Adam of the light, as the Logos descending as the intermediary between the one, the monad, called in the Old Testament the Holy One. And in the Shema, it's very significant. I don't want to digress too much. But so this whole process of Philo is significant because this was a family that included not only Lysimachus, who was involved with Bernice and the leaders of the Roman Empire to subvert it, to fulfill the prophecy of chasing the Jews into exile, which was expressly stated in Deuteronomy 300 years prior in the Septuagint. They planned for this. And not only was Philo Judaeus, his brother Lysimachus, the rich man corrupting the Roman Empire, he referred to Cicero. The specific passage is chapter 28 of Pro Flaccus for Flacco, where he talks about hoarding the gold and shipping it to Jerusalem. But also Tiberius Julius Alexander, who was related to Philo and Lysimachus. He was the general under Tiberius who destroyed the Jewish quarter in Alexandria, Egypt, and destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. All this was done and set up by crypto Jews. Jews have got to realize they are likewise being set up now to be destroyed. That's why you have Natura Carta. That's why you have the Satmar Jews pretending to be, quote, true Torah Jews, saying that Israel is a political state established by Theodor Herzl.
Yeah, it's a psychological misdirection technique to kill your own people in the process of performing a violent act. It is widely known that because so many of your own people also died in that act, it's like it's absolute misdirection, because nobody will believe that you actually did that. They're going to say, "Oh, it had to be another group. There's too many of these people that died here." This is the whole history since 1947 and 48. It's the whole history of all these intelligence operations that were going on in Palestine. You know, I have a list somewhere. I don't remember where I put it. I got a whole list of all the terrorist acts that have gone down in the Middle East. So you would not believe these people were the center of almost every single one of them. And the victims were often Jewish.
Mossad was attacking and bombing synagogues in Iraq to get the Mizrahi and the Sephardic Jews from Morocco to Iraq to come and populate Israel. Moses slaughtered the people who helped to worship the golden calf. They are built on child sacrifice of the firstborn and on obtaining redemption through sin and through the murder of their own people, as well as the rest of humanity. I don't mean to ignore the fact that the ultimate aim is to kill off all non-Jewish humanity, to kill off 2/3 of Jews, and ultimately to change the nature of Jewish humanity into a chimera.
The whole concept. See, we have to judge things by their effects. Let's assume, you and I, just right now, just an intellectual exercise. Let's assume these psychopathic maniacs fulfill their agenda. Let's assume that 2/3 of the entire world's population is decimated and gone, and they're reigning supreme. If that was to actually happen, within 5 years, they will be devouring themselves. The whole we are God's chosen people. Everybody is cattle except us. We're the only true spiritual people. The philosophers were very correct. You may know which philosopher said this. I don't remember. But I believe it was Durant. But don't quote me. It could be Schopenhauer. But a famous philosopher once said that the worst thing that could ever happen to an ideal is its fulfillment. So I'm telling you now, so I'm not worried about the whole Jewish deal. I understand they run the world. They run the world banks. They run the sporting industries. They run everything. They ran Hollywood. You know, the Epstein deals. They run everything. I just don't care. But it's to me, if they get what they want, they will self-implode. They will do themselves away so fast that the survivors will just rebuild civilization without them.
They are also tend to be uncreative people, despite the fact that they corruptly get nominated and made Nobel Prize winners, etc.
Almost all the greatest movies that have ever been in cinematographer were written by non-Jews, but they were directed by Jews. And a lot of times, like with The Matrix, there's a lot of accusations about how different manuscripts were actually obtained, and the original authors were suppressed, and minorities were actually given credit for things they did not write. I'm telling you, man, you're right. Hollywood is rife with accusations of all these genius writings being not the people we were told.
Yeah, Jonas Salk was accused of stealing the ideas of one of his graduate students. I very thoroughly proved that Albert Einstein was a career plagiarist. The major scientists in Israel today are Russian Gentiles and people from the former Soviet republics running Unit 8200. And they're not going to make it without Gentiles. They deliberately engage in a form of parasitism and a host nation. They were very worried when they took over the Soviet Union, when Lenin tried to open up the economy in the new economic policy, NEP, which was a subterfuge so that the West would invest in Russia. They were worried that they would lose their oligarch status and lose the ability to exploit the Gentiles and suck off their wealth. The same was true. One of the reasons why many Jews did not want to go to Palestine was because they realized that there would be no Gentile class to exploit and to profit off of, and it was an enterprise doomed to fail.
My case for me. Let the ideal find its realization, and within 5 years, they'll self-implode. There's no one to siphon off of anymore. You killed everybody. And there is no such thing as a Jewish utopia. It's impossible. You cannot live by the strictures, the traditions, the habits and beliefs, and the belief structure of the Jewish people. You can't live by that in an all 100% Jewish world. There's nothing to steal. There's nothing to take. There's nothing to siphon. There's nothing to do. You wouldn't be God's chosen people anymore. You'd be the only people.
There are many Kabbalists who are keenly aware of that. And they have been setting up to preserve a remnant and to continue in this exercise. They're going to say that the supposed worthy generation, failed, and that Israel imploded and be sent into another exile, perhaps into China. It's a recurring process. But they first have to exterminate Amalek, the white people. They have to bring down the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa to build the third temple so that their God can then punish them again by chasing them into the next exile, killing 2/3 of them and destroying this fake temple, which wasn't built by the true arrival of the divine Messiah. They're setting it all up. But my concern is we can't simply only be reactive to what they're doing. So I have been calling for us to organize the preservation of a remnant of the very best, eugenically, of our own people, and to start to preserve seeds and eggs from our own people. And every race, every creed should be doing this if they want to survive what is very likely to be coming next. And that we should have seed banks and egg banks and be preserving the DNA of our ancestors. They have already turned human beings into genetically modified organisms. We need the ancient roots of our DNA to be preserved, if only so that in the future we can study it and restore ourselves.
I'm gonna have to interject. You don't know. You just don't know right now that we haven't already done that. We have a very tight-knit military infrastructure in the West that doesn't seem to participate in a lot of the military operations going on around the world. You don't know what we have preserved in our underground facilities. We have over 200 underground military and civilian facilities underneath the United States right now. All the funding was published. It's open records. Anybody can look at it in 1973, 74, 75. This funding has been made available every year. They have been building. They got these huge Air Force, it says Air Force on them, giant Air Force tunnel makers. They've been doing the infrastructure in the underworld is fantastic. You don't know that we don't already have these seed banks, and that anything that's already known in the civilian world, like the research you and I do, they're already on top of it. They have think tanks that already harvest all this data as well. I just don't have any fears like that. I believe that no matter what happens to the surface world, the underworld is always preserving the integrity of the seed banks, culture, genetics, the arts and sciences. And this is an aspect of my research you're probably not familiar with, but I've shown my community a lot of data that in certain times when the United States went through potential really bad disasters, it was right after those times that all of a sudden great priceless works of art were released back into the public. Things were hidden for a while. Like our controllers or our government, a substrate of our culture seems to be acting as a benefactor to preserve ancient texts, ancient libraries, all kinds of things, and then slow releases them back into the public. There's a lot of evidence for this cycle. So I'm just saying, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying that I don't think what you're proposing has not already been done. I think it's already done. I think it's been done. And I think that if there was a cataclysm, if there was a purge, if the Jews got their way and did everything that they want to do, they would self-implode. And then after that, these benefactors would come up and they would just re-release all the deals. And I think everything, yeah, I'm just not doom seeing. That doom seeing deal, first of all, I don't think they're qualified to even pass off what they're trying to do. I just don't think I think the ego gets in the way of the intellect. And when that happens, they trip over themselves, and then they're going to cull their own, and they're going to blame all, just like you said, they're going to blame all of them because, look, man, we just didn't have enough of you participating. Enough of y'all didn't believe, so the Messiah didn't come, and now look, why'd he kick us in the ass again?
I could only see that happening on a very small scale because I and no one I have known, and in no reports I have ever seen, has anyone revealed that they have been approached for seed banks donations or for egg donations, other than on a very small commercial scale where all of that is essentially publicly accounted for. Now, if they were doing that on the scale that you suggest, you would think that there would be evidence of it and a broad awareness of it, because people with very high IQs like me would have been approached at some point to donate seed, and females that I know to donate eggs. And I've seen absolutely no evidence of it in terms of
we're talking about two different seed banks. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about, yeah. I'm thinking I'm a gardener, so I have gardens. I got all kinds of plants. I'm thinking I didn't know you were talking about genetics. I didn't know you were talking about, yeah.
No, I'm talking about people. I know that
I'm thinking
the
about
Norwegians in the Arctic have created all kinds of paleo seed banks.
I'm thinking about
preserve the plant kingdom
and the need for self-germinating seeds.
Okay, that's where the confusion arose. I'm specifically talking about preserving, I think the Europeans should do it, but I recommend it to every people's, preserving eugenically the very best seeds and eggs of our people. And I have pointed to the fact that they have these banks reserves for the plant kingdom. It only makes sense to have it for the hominid human family. In terms of the underworld, it's something I've been discussing for many years. I've done several videos on what is officially called the troglodyte cave Jews, how the ancient Christians and the Essenes lived in caves and constructed underground cities, how this is a war between the sun god Ra and the god of chaos, the god of hell, the god of the inner world with its black sun, Seth. And that is why they are engaging in geoengineering. They want to flip. In Kabbalah, you have the Sephirotic tree, which is the tree of life from the Garden of Eden. And beneath it, you have the Kalipotic tree, which is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that is equated by them to the surface of the earth being the Sephirotic tree, and the Kalipotic demonic tree being the inner world of the earth lit by its own black sun. And they want to invert that like an hourglass turning over. And they want to make the heavenly world the subterranean world. There have always been cave Jews. Out in Libya and Morocco, there are still Jews living underground. And in Ethiopia, the early Christians, and very much so in Turkey, built extensive cities and church complexes underground. That is the plan. They want to turn the surface of the earth into hell and turn the subterranean world into heaven. And that is the ultimate victory of the God of Israel, who is Seth Typhon, over the God of the sun god Ra, to block out Ra from the sky and to turn the surface of the earth from hell instead of the inner world of the earth being hell, and then to turn the inner world of the earth into heaven. And that is what the menorah is all about. It has 8 candles, and the 8th candle represents the 8th day after the 7 days of creation, causing the shining darkness. And they want to illuminate the inner earth as they darken the outer earth. And they want to kill everyone on the surface. But before killing them, they want to punish them as their scapegoats, because that obtains redemption for them.
Yeah, it's the same scenario as shaking the chicken. They want to shake the goy. They want to shake the goy. That's all it is.
Slit the throat first.
Yeah, man. I understand. That's why, listen, I understand their beliefs and their traditions. I have absolute respect for your knowledge of for your knowledge of all this. What my position is that they're not going to succeed. And they have never succeeded. The entire history of the world is full of nothing but their failures. But they punish the world as well for those failures as well. They're very good at spreading out not only blame but also scapegoating. I mean, they are absolute geniuses in scapegoating in what they do. And this final push, I don't feel that they're going to be successful at all. I think it's going to dissipate into a bunch of silliness, and they're going to end up coming up with all kinds of excuses why their new fake Messiah failed them again. I mean, it's almost like a pattern. It's almost like they're playing by the Bible, using the Bible as a playbook. And in order to interpret the playbook, they have all these supplemental materials called Midrashic texts, Jonathan Targums, all the Babylonian Targums, the Talmud, all the pseudepigraphical material that they use to it's like their crackerjack decoder for the Torah. And you know what? I'm unimpressed. I am unimpressed with their entire history. I do admit that they are geniuses at what they do, but from a moral and ethical perspective, I'm unimpressed that they always fall for the same tactics. They just think if they do it more, it'll be successful this time. But I just, you know what? I think even their failure is encoded in the Book of Revelation. Even in the Book of Revelation, they just don't succeed. Mystery Babylon is totally collapsed. It's yeah, man. I'm just, I don't know. I don't know where you're going with this. I don't know.
I think the proper interpretation.
Do you think they're going to succeed, or do you think this is going to be another example of an epic failure? What is your opinion?
I'm hoping that Providence intervenes once again, and that they are so inept, corrupt, and that their plan is so by nature destructive that it will destroy itself. But I am cautionary for very specific reasons. I think the proper interpretation of the book of Revelations is that the Christ, the Messiah, son of Joseph, returns as the Antichrist to kill off the Christian world and empower the Jewish world, and we have the 144,000 Jewish male virgins to then take over the world, and the descent of the Saturnic cube of heavenly Jerusalem to the earth. All of these are have to be properly interpreted through the lens of the Gospel of Judas and the Apocalypse of Abraham, which say that the Christians are dupes, that the apostles were sent out to deceive the Goyim and lead them into the slaughterhouse by themselves, fulfilling all of these prophecies. Now, why am I so alarmed and cautious and don't want to leave it up to fate? 20 years ago, I found a very important book written by a rabbi, Joseph Krull, who worked, I think, for Cambridge or Oxford. I think it was Cambridge, back in the 1700s and early 1800s. And he revealed a lot of this plan, the plan to fight Iran, et cetera. And I put that all out. But he very specifically said that the name Adam, when written in Hebrew, Aleph, Dalet, Mem, represents an acronym of the name Adam as the Aleph, the Dalet being David HaMelech, King David, and the Mem representing Mashiach or Mashiach, depending on whether it's Ashkenazi or Sephardic Hebrew. And that there was a 2,854-year period from the Aleph to the Dalet, from Adam to King David. And therefore, there would likewise be a 2,854-year period from King David to Mashiach, to the creation of the nation of Israel. Now, when you sum that, as he did, you get the year 5,708 on the Hebrew calendar. That equates to the year 1948. And he published that prophecy in 1812, saying that Mashiach would arrive and the nation of Israel would be formed in the year 1948. How much overwhelming power did it take world Jewry to make that happen? And how much did the world suffer through in World Wars I and World War II to make it fit that exact eschatological timeline? Now, that's not the only time that they said it would be 1948, hundreds of years ago before it happened. Rabbi Benjamin Black has pointed out that the Gaon of Vilna has referred to Zoharic glosses on passages in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. And the Gaon of Vilna said that every passage in the Torah corresponds to a specific year. The 5,708th passage in Deuteronomy, I think it might be chapter 30, verse 5. This is all off the top of my head, stated that the Jews would return. So the Gaon of Vilna predicted, based upon that the Jews would return and take Palestine in the year 1948.
So speaking of the year 1948, listen, when it comes to calendrics, that's my specialty. I'm going to tell you now that I've gone through the material that you looked at, that you're quoting right now, and I find it highly manipulated. Not manipulated on your part, you're just quoting what they said. But we already know that almost across the board, from Rashi, Moses, Maimonides, all the way up to all the Hebrew scholars of today, it is across the board understood that Abram in the biblical chronology was born in the year 1948 of the biblical timeline. This is Anno Mundi reckoning. Also, they also claim that it was 1947 BC, which is almost a dead ringer. One calendar goes forward in time, one calendar goes backward in time. And I've showed my community in numerous references to these dating systems and all the rabbis that quote this. 1947 BC for the date of Abram is the same as 1948 in the biblical chronology, from Adam and Eve all the way.
Because there's a year zero. I pointed all that out in my book, Beware the World to Come.
So check this out. The reason I'm mentioning this is because if the new state of Israel was going to have a new start date they would want to make it highly symbolic for 1947 and 48. Those are the two key years for the reestablishment under the Balfour Declaration for the return of Israel as a state. So for the creation of Israel as a state. But they would want to make it symbolic to line up with that. But the chronology gives you the key. There are many different rabbis who understand that the Hebrew reckoning, being in the 57th century now, is artificial. 455 years ago, it did not exist. It is a new chronology. The original chronology that has Abram born in 1947 BC, it's very interesting because Flavius Josephus says that Abram was born in the 292nd year after the flood. Well, that dates the flood at 2239 BC. And we already know from the book of Genesis and the rabbinical records, it's not even disputed. The entire pre-flood world was 1656 years. That makes year one to be 3895 BC, not 3761. The 3761 BC date for the Hebrew calendar is not a start for the beginning. It is the start for some significant event that they've never really identified what that event was. But it doesn't appear in any chronological records. It's not in Seder Olam. It's not in any of the original chronographical materials of the Hebrews. It literally appeared around 450 years ago. And they've just been running with it. So my point is this: everything you're quoting is correct. And the rabbis think that the chronology is correct. But it seems to me that somebody deliberately aligned the Balfour Declaration, creation of the State of Israel for 1948, to align perfectly with the 1947 BC, 1948 Anno Mundi, birth of Abraham.
All the things that you're saying, I'm aware of, and I have published on many, many years, going back many, many years. This correlates to the ages of the zodiac, and it is much older than you're implying, because it relates to the concept that there are 6 days of creation, which was already contained in the beginning, the first paragraphs of the book of Genesis talks about the 6 days of creation. And then the Bible goes on to explain, I think in Psalms and Proverbs, that every one of those days represents a 1,000-year period. So they created this mythology that there would be 6,000 years of creation, which means the rectification, which means the destruction of the created world. And that corresponded to the ages of the zodiac, beginning with Taurus being the first 2,000-year period. 1947 is a pretty close shaving off of 2,000 years. So then we had initially from Adam to Abraham was a 2,000-year period. The first 2 days of creation corresponding to the zodiac of Taurus. And then you had the age of the Jews, of Moses blowing the ram's horn, of Aries from Abraham to Jesus, supposedly the year 0 up to 33 AD. So that's the next 2,000-year period. So 1948 is only significant. I was going to go on and explain the gematria, but it doesn't matter. So these are corresponding to the ages of the zodiac, and we now get the culmination of the age of Pisces heading into the age of Aquarius, being the next 2 days, the next 2,000-year cycle, the next 1948 cycle heading into the age of Aquarius, which is to open up the millennium of the Messianic age and the reappearance of the Messiah. And there are two Messiahs. First, the appearance of Messiah, son of David, in the form of Armilus Trump, being the Gentile side of the Messiah, son of David, and the Messiah anointed for war of the Jewish side, the Ashkenazi Jewish side, the European Edomite side, which is the Joseph side of the Messiahs, being Benjamin Netanyahu, as I pointed out in 2006. So the Messiah, son of Joseph, is now at this end. We had 9/11 right around the period that the Jehovah's Witnesses and what was his name? Charles Russell Taze or whatever, who predicted World War I in 1914 back in the 1870s. This furthered that prediction that around 2001 there would be this cataclysm, and there was, and they staged it. This is much older than the Midrash and the Talmud, which also talked about this 6,000-year period being broken up into 2,000-year periods, which correspond with the zodiac. And dispensationalist Christianity breaks it into the same 2000, 1948, 1947 periods that we are discussing.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. The 6,000-year period is very prominent in the Zoroastrian writings too, which the Old Testament, a lot of its eschatological material mirrors almost word for word some of the prophecies in the Zendavesta on the darkening of the sun and the earthquakes and all that. The 6,000-year period.
And the melting of the mountains and the flow of the mountains, all of that is stolen directly and syncretized into Judaism as the apocalyptic prophecies. Absolutely.
Look, you and I could talk this, because also Ralph Ellis. I mean, we could talk all this stuff all day long. It's amazing, but I want to exercise a little hypocrisy real quick. And the hypocrisy I want to exercise, the hypocrisy I want to exercise is narrative control. So this is all fascinating information, but I would really like to get back to Professor Jiang, because you got some really compelling stuff, man. Listen, it's the issue with Professor Jiang is not that he's lying. It's that he's being used as a tool. Well, I believe somebody has taken a tremendous amount of data from multiple sources, you being one of them, and taken and given him the talking points, giving him the platform, because I believe he's the lure. I've been doing some studies on personalities who have risen super fast, and no one even comes close to Professor Jiang. I've looked up, I use Grok AI to give me all the personalities who just rose up suddenly, zero to hero suddenly, and it gave me a whole list, and then disqualified. I set parameters. It disqualified all these different people, like Andrew Tate. He comes from the sports world. His rise was fast, but he was already known. David Icke, he's a truther. You know what? His rise wasn't that fast, and he came from the spot, even though he's widely known today. So he's disqualified. His rise wasn't fast; it was organic. Then there's a huge amount. Guess what Grok AI said? The only person that even comes close to how Professor Jiang just exploded onto the field in the last 5 months. Yes, he was getting popular last year, but he didn't explode. It was all in the month of March that just in the last 30 days, he's been on Piers Morgan. He's been on Tucker Carlson, Glenn Deason. How do you say it? Deason or Dyson? He's been on Breaking Points with Crystal and that dude in Jetty.
And Sneeko and Jimmy Dore.
Jimmy Dore. I didn't have that one. He's been on Endgame with Werjawan. I think her name is Werjawan or something.
And also in the mainstream press.
He was just on the higher side chat. This is all 30 days. In 30 days, he has literally exploded across mainstream for predictions that were already 20 and 25 years already predicted. It was already widely known. There isn't anything he said. And as a matter of fact, they're not even talking about the predictions he didn't get right. He literally told us who the vice president was going to be, and he got it wrong. They just totally ignore that.
I wasn't aware of that.
The Hawk Tui girl. The Hawk Tui girl. You remember the Hawk Tui girl?
Oh, yeah.
The Hawk Tui girl. Grok AI says Andrew Tate, David Icke, none of these real popular people, what's the dude that played the child catcher in the 2012 Olympics? I never can remember his name. But anyway, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, nobody comes close to this guy. Professor
I've been
Jiang.
Watching it for 30 years.
Yeah,
I've
no
been
one
exposing the fact
and
that
Grok
the
AI
Russians,
says the Hawk Tui girl is the only one in social media history that came up faster than him.
I've
Yeah,
been
man.
watching it for 30 years. I've been exposing how Israel and world Jewry are involved in the alternative media, how the gold cartel is involved in the alternative media, how the libertarians were involved in the Russians, how the whole patriot movement was fake and was meant to bring down America and boost up Russia and China. And I, like you, have never seen anything even close to
Yeah,
it.
man.
The way that Stu
People think we're
Peters
hating
was
on the
built
guy.
up.
Hey man, people think we're really hating on the guy. But I'm trying to tell people he's telling us a lot of the truths. He is. He's got some of his predictions wrong when everybody just totally forgets all of a sudden. But it ain't telling us who the vice president was isn't the only prediction he got wrong. But the deal is what we have seen is how mainstream media, in tandem probably with intelligence agencies, how fast they can put somebody on the map and get the normies to trust them. I'm done. This guy's got the attention of the
Absolutely.
entire normie population. And this is the day.
Very well said. That's the most important point of all of this, is the fact that they can so easily, they have so much power and so much absolute control that they can so easily, with their bots, with their controlled influencers, sway public opinion in any direction that they want to at any time. And the narrative that this guy is pushing is protracted war, and that is a Maoist narrative. And he is calling for an exchange of escalation, up the ladder of escalation, where this is headed towards destroying all of the petrochemical industry of the Gulf region, both the GCC states and Iran. This is heading towards nuclear war by having Israel bomb again and again Natanz and the nuclear infrastructure of Iran, so that they are obligated to retaliate in the Negev desert against Dimona. Now, if any nuclear facilities get blown up in Israel, in Dimona, that serves as a pretext for Messiah, son of Joseph Benjamin Netanyahu, to then drop a thermonuclear bomb on Tehran. And he is playing right into that narrative. He's proposing no solutions. He is not proposing de-escalation. He is trying to embolden and encourage both sides to engage in fulfilling these messianic prophecies and saying that it's inevitable, nothing can be done about it, and that ultimately it is for good. And he is at the same time trying to encourage a Maoist peasant revolution. He's coming up with all kinds of stupid nonsense, saying that the reason that people are poor is because the governments refuse to print more money, ignoring the effect of inflation and how that would completely erode the value of money as a medium of exchange and destroy the economy, how it would remove any incentive to work so that there would be no real economy, no production. All of this is leading into the peasant class being destroyed and supplanted by the robotics that are going to engage in the real economy.
I agree. He's the lure, though. He's the lure. He's got all the normies' attention. Millions of people are now listening to him as if he's an authority. So once somebody is put on that pedestal, it is not an accident. It is not an accident that somebody's put on that pedestal. So now that he has all this attention and he's got all these mainstreamers, this is just 30 days he's been on all these shows. So
it's incredible. It's mind-boggling.
Now comes the bait and switch. The bait and switch is once he's got everybody's trust, now his handlers begin feeding him information for narrative control. That's my whole point. I have never said he was lying to us. He did get some predictions wrong, but still, I'm not saying he's lying to us. I'm saying that he's actually weaponized the truth. And there's no way that he did this alone at all. He didn't.
I couldn't agree more. Very well said. And I want to emphasize how dangerous that is, that we are being handed this shoehorn Messiah. You know he's disingenuous. You know he can't be trusted because he is ripping off every aspect of my work on physics, geometry, time, space, Parmenides, the Eleatics, relativity theory. He doesn't understand anything about relativity theory. He doesn't understand anything about Parmenides, about the one, about the fact that what was, what is, and what will be all coexist, that everything is simultaneous forever. He's just parroting things that I said. And he is doing this to interject Kabbalah into the dialogue, into this new religion of this Gnosticism, this Neoplatonism, and this Kabbalah, of that we are all the same because we are all holy sparks of God. And that destroys any nationalism, any ethnocentrism, any sense of identity among Europeans. And he's not speaking in Chinese, he's speaking in English. He was reared on English. This whole classroom stuff.
But he's living in China. He's living in China.
Oh, yeah, that's something else I wanted to touch on.
They got listen, China, this is no joke. Social media is tightly regulated. In China, all you got to do is say the wrong thing on social media, and those murder vans will show up to your place. They've got furnaces inside the vans. Man, I'm talking about, listen, they're not doing no joking in China. They're not playing with their people. Their people are strictly censored on social media. So if he says anything even remotely against the Chinese government, then it's a part of the plan. It's a part of the lure. It's a part of the bait and switch, because he's being allowed to say that. You don't see anybody else from Japan on YouTube telling it like it is. None.
And the same thing is going on in the West. I am deeply, deeply suppressed, which is why I'm so tremendously grateful to you for platforming me. It's the flip side of the same coins, and what it results in is only one message gets put out to control the narrative. And why is the West? Why are all the social media companies? Why are all these Western talking heads colluding with the Chinese to make this guy the fortune cookie for the world with his predictions, to make him the spokesman for the world? Why is there this active collusion between the Russian, Chinese, and CIA powers putting this out? That tells you that all of this is orchestrated at the highest globalist level, that there are no saviors, there are no good guys in control. Nobody with a white hat like Trump is going to come riding in. Instead, it's going to be the pale horse of death. And we are headed towards catastrophe, and they will continually put it in controlled opposition to control the narrative and to steal the thunder from figures like me and you, to redirect all of the energy into this energy sink, who ultimately, his ultimate message is to conform to all of this, to go along with all of this, to provide no real opposition or resistance to any of it. He is not organizing anti-war protests. He is not trying to calm down what is going on.
I agree. The whole point is, though, the whole point that needs to be hammered in, people have a real hard time processing this. There are thousands of people in social media telling you the truth. I'm not talking to you, Chris. I'm talking to my community. There are thousands of people literally telling you the truth. They spent their lives, they spend their money. Like me, I don't have a sponsor. I don't have the income you think I have. So a lot of things come at great cost to me. Also to Christopher, other people, and they spent their lives and expend their personal energy bringing you the best data that they can. Best data. Thousands of people are doing this, and they're doing it far more eloquently. They're bringing the receipts, showing chapter and verse. So that's why we're suspicious of someone who's not telling you his source materials, who seems to know everything and just suddenly appeared. If you don't think 1 year is fast, you have to understand, it's only been 30 days that he's been exploding all huge. He's been pretty famous for 6 months, building in fame because of 2 predictions. But those 2 predictions were made 20 years ago. But still, it doesn't even matter. The real issue here is that there are thousands of people who are highly qualified to tell you the truth, and they're far more entertaining, and they bring the receipts, but they're all ignored to push this guy who all of a sudden just explodes. This is the issue. This is why it's the explosion. This is why people are it's not just archaics. It's not just Christopher here CJB. There are many YouTube channels. There are many hosts, intelligent people who are seeing the signs. Go to the search bar on YouTube and look this dude up and look his name up and just put hoax or debunked, and you will see all the videos. There's a lot of people waking up fast to this guy. We're not the only ones. It is not normal. This does not happen. The Hawk Tui girl is the only other personality in online history that ever exploded like this guy here.
Yeah. And not even to anywhere near the extent of this guy.
Yeah.
I back what you say 100%. Absolutely. I don't know if you want to talk about his ties to Yale and Mao Zedong and John Kerry, the crypto Jew who came out of Skull and Bones and Yale, and who was related to the Rabbi of Prague who created the Golem, to the Bushes being involved with Yale, to George Bush Sr. being CIA director and second liaison chief to the People's Republic of China, et cetera, et cetera. There are all kinds of red flags about this guy. And another issue is all of these foxhole conversions of the people who got Donald Trump elected to play the role of Antichrist, Armilus, of the Gentile side of Messiah, son of Joseph. Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes in his first campaign. The list goes on and on of all these people who are now presuming.
Every name you just mentioned, I do not trust any of them. Listen,
absolutely not.
Listen, I believe, Christopher, I lead by example. So my community knows this about me. I already have a complex about having 186,000 subscribers. I have a complex about it because I'm openly critical of Jews. I don't want to hear any arguments from people telling me, now, Jason, you don't understand. They're Frankist, whatever. Or now, man, they're crypto Jews. Oh, hey, man, no, man, you don't understand, Jason. They're Ashkenazis, they're Khazarian mafia. You got to confuse. I don't want to hear none of that. None of that. Not with the amount of research I've done on the topic going back before any of these labels were ever attached to the historical record. I'm talking about the people and the culture themselves. This is what they've been known to do. This is why Rome razed their city to the ground, not once, but twice. I know my history. I'm not going to let people gaslight me. So sometimes I wonder, man, I'm getting so popular by being vocal and just being original and being me and myself that there's going to come a tipping point where I'm going to move all my content into like my underground society. I'm going to go because I'm going to tell you now, I'm not going to live by the same accusation I levy at other people. And that accusation is, man, if you're on social media and you've got millions of followers, you signed the contract. There's no way around that. There is no one who gets to the level I'm like Jiang's in now. There's no one that gets to that level who has not signed the contract. There are no free. The Mr. Beast, Andrew Tate, Brandon. Why do I always forget this dude's name? Somebody just mentioned him in the chat too. The guy, the child catcher from 2012. Why do I always forget Brandon? Something Brandon, I think. Oh, I don't remember, man. But what I'm saying is I don't mean to rant, but I'm in the duplicity is that I'm glad that I have an audience. I'm glad that I have a lot of people that listen to me. But at the same time, how long is this going to last? Because I don't have a muzzle on my mouth. I call things as I see them. I haven't signed any contract. I still don't have a sponsor. I've never had, out of almost 1,200 videos on some really meticulous research, on some really good stuff too, I've never had a viral video. But when that day comes, yeah, man, I'm going to have to move around. Because once I get to that level of popularity, it's going to be really easy to dismiss me as a shill too. It's going to be really easy to dismiss me. Oh, Jason must have signed a contract. And then in the issuance of just general opinions, if people disagree with those opinions, they'll just say, oh, shoot, Jason works for CIA now. Yeah, man. So there's going to come a time where I just say, you know what, man, to lead by example, so I can get a real powerful, strong, cogent following that I know is loyal. I'm going to move my community somewhere else and be off YouTube, because YouTube is compromised. And the biggest channels on compromised are all controlled by intelligence agencies. That is my opinion. So when that day comes for me, you're going to see our cakes disappear. But until then, I'm going to keep saying what I got to say. And one thing is I am telling I am telling my community, with you as my guest right now, that I am absolutely 100% sold that this Professor Jiang is being fed his lines. If he's working for an agency, I don't know, but he is certainly being fed his talking points. And I do not believe that he is anywhere near as knowledgeable as he pretends to be. And if he comes on my channel anytime, because if his people contact me, I'm cool with it. If he comes on my channel, I will ask him the hard questions. It will not be a friendly conversation. I suspect this man, and I'll put the fire to his feet real quick because I'm qualified to do that. I know my historical material, but nothing about this guy smells right to me at all.
I concur, and I take it branch off from that in another direction, which I find very important, is that, again, I am coming out with a new physics. I work with Professor Friedvard Winterberg of the University of Nevada, Reno. He reverse engineered nuclear weapons and very famously came out with a book explaining how thermonuclear weapons work. He very famously, he took his PhD under Werner Heisenberg, and he was the premier fusion physicist in the world. He defended Werner von Braun and Rudolph, and worked with the Larouchians on fusion technology, and he got smeared as if he were an anti-Semite, and supposedly came out of the Operation Paperclip, where they took Nazi scientists and brought them over to the U.S. to work on rocket technology, nuclear technology.
There's a lot of people in that genre of research into like hyperdimensional type technologies, anti-gravity propulsion systems. I can understand there's a lot of people who get suppressed in that field. There's a lot of people that disappear on the free energy, the hydrogen, using retrofitting your gasoline engines to run on water. Listen, these people have disappeared. These people have either been bought out. Strange things happen to this. Yeah, that's not the genre of that's not the type of research I'm into at all. But I have noticed the suppression is real on those type of technologies, which you're discussing.
Well, he wanted to use dipole technology, utilizing positive and negative masses, not charged particles, but positive and negative masses. And he wanted to mine the negative masses, which he theorized are contained in the center of the planets. And he wanted to mine the moon to get those negative masses, to create dipoles of positive and negative masses, to achieve relativistic speeds. And then at relativistic speeds, he believed that there would be a Lorentz contraction of the universe so that there could be intergalactic travel by means of these rockets propelled in that manner. And he was studied by the CIA and by the NSA, and there are federal documents about all this. This is real science. This is not quack science. But what I'm getting at is he also engineered non-neutronic methods of obtaining fusion to propel rockets with massive capacitors for various forms to establish colonies on the moon and Mars, as Werner von Braun had proposed. But what I'm getting at is we worked on concepts of the next generation of weapons of total destruction. And I believe that the only way that we are going to save ourselves from this enemy attack on all of humanity is to segregate and start shutting our mouths and create a new society that is not engaged with the rest of the world, that is going to go down in what all I predict is happening based upon the messianic apocalyptic prophecies of the enemy. And that it is vitally important that all this information, this knowledge, these insights that I have not get spread. I predicted that someone like Jiang would come along and steal everything that I had been saying for 20 years and utilize it as this Judas goat, this Pied Piper, to mislead people in the wrong direction. There is also the high danger that they're going to start stealing my physics, my geometry, to utilize it to create these weapons of mass destruction, just as fission, atomic bombs, the original A-bomb that came before the two-stage fission, fusion, hydrogen thermonuclear weapons, just as it was forecast in the 1870s by S. Tolver Preston as the decomposition of matter. There are also means for the accretion of matter into what is commonly referred to as a black hole. And that's what they're working on at CERN, to create a weapon of mass destruction which would convert the Earth into a black hole. And I have many proposals and models of how to do things like that, how to redirect asteroids and comets as weapons of total destruction on the Earth, how to utilize microorganisms to manipulate the gases of the atmosphere into weapons of total destruction. I don't want to totally destroy the world, but I do want to create a deterrence against this force which has been engineering our extinction for 2,500 years, which has mutated the genetics of the human race so that people are no longer human, so that young men do not produce sufficient semen to continue the race, so that their testosterone levels are destroyed, so that cancers are exploding, so that we are no longer human. We need a defense against this. And I am proposing that the best minds and people with great wealth can fund a new society that has to go figuratively, not literally, underground to create a force, a military force which can deter and, if necessary, defend itself from this attack on you.
I'm going to stop you right there, and I'm going to interject, and I'm going to call you a blind prophet. And I'm going to explain why. I know you've already said this in this presentation that you don't have any evidence for this, but I think the evidence has been staring us in the face. I've done some pretty deep dives on the substructure of the United States and what the military-industrial complex has actually built underground and what they have done. Not just the civilian vectors, but the actual real military, not this bullshit that we have on the surface. Air Force, not the Air Force, not the Navy. That's all on the surface. Listen, $21 trillion recently came up missing, but it didn't. But that much money just doesn't disappear. It's used for something. They just don't want to tell they don't want to tell the public what it was. An equal amount of money came up missing in 9/11 as well. On September 11th. As a matter of fact, it was reported by Donald Rumsfeld the day before on September 10th. And then it was just disappeared in the news. My point is this. I'm calling you the blind prophet because you're literally saying what we need to do. But it's been my position for years that we're already doing that, and they're keeping that from the public sector. There is already a breakaway civilization thriving in the underworld right now. And this is the whole subject of the trucker convoys. So all the misdirection about the trucker convoys in 2020, 2021, they get resurrected in 2023, and all these patriot pacification agents all over social media were giving us false narratives about what was really going on, but they really just wanted us to normalize seeing long chains of trucks passing over the United States and disappearing in different areas, because they were disappearing in mountainous areas. And there's many truckers that have reported the underground facilities that they delivered their goods to. Listen, I'm telling you that it's my opinion that everything that you're saying right now, what we need to do is already being done. But you and I are just on the outside looking in. You and I haven't been invited to the party, but there are people already doing this, and they've been doing it for a very long period of time. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion, man. And you can continue on with what you're talking about. But the more I'm listening to you, the more I'm hearing things that I've already told my community I suspect has been going on for a long time.
I'm not a blind prophet. I have issued publicly what you could call prophecies for 30 years with 100% accuracy that no one on earth made, including you and your community. I have that public track record. I'm the most accurate prophet on earth. It is a straw man argument and false to say that I have said that this is not taking place in the enemy camp. I have always said that these things are taking place in the enemy camp. I have explained the troglodyte cave Jew idea, but unlike you, I do not believe that this is taking place in the camp of the good guys who want to preserve the white race as I do. Instead, this is taking place for the benefit of the enemy camp. So I am proposing that we do not have the blind faith that you have, that there is an establishment of good guys who are doing all this for our benefit. This is clearly all taking place to destroy us. They would not be poisoning us and altering our genetics only to someday reverse course.
I can agree.
I think what you're proposing is absurd on its face.
I'm not alluding that they're good guys. I didn't say that they were good guys. I just said that they were doing it. Yeah, it's yeah, I see that. I see where you have said that about basically the Jews. You're saying that the Jews are already preparing underground facilities. I get
well,
that.
they are utilizing the Gentiles to construct these facilities for them, which they will then usurp, just as they are utilizing the Gentiles to develop all the technologies involved, just as they brought in Russian Gentiles.
Let me ask you this, because listen, I don't mean to impugn on the integrity of your beliefs or research. I'm very impressed. I'm actually very impressed of the things we're talking about. We just have some minor disagreements. But one of those disagreements seems to be on, if we're going to take a tremendous amount of information, especially eschatology, out of biblical materials from the Torah going all the way through, so are we not also going to lean on those same texts that actually say that a kinsman redeemer is coming and is going to set all matters correct? A chief cornerstone is going to eventually wipe out this scourge and this plague. That are we only going with the Jewish eschatology, which is very dark for the rest of the world, or do you actually think there is an oversoul? There is a creator God who actually has the best intents for his children. I'm trying to figure out where does that fit in here?
Where it fits in my view, is our evolution as self-assembling, self-replicating molecular structures, which have evolved to have consciousness of the material world, and in some higher minds, which are more highly evolved, has evolved to have consciousness of past, present, and future as being co-extant, and can perceive to a better extent than the rest of humanity how it is that the universe is structured, and that we have to intervene on our own behalf to ensure our survival and not rely upon ancient mythologies and eschatologies, but instead to create plans and develop technologies which can guarantee our survival.
I get it. Your position is very practical. It's actually the logical solution. I get it. So in disseminating all this ancient Jewish eschatology, you're not promoting it as your belief. You're promoting it as the belief of the very people that are oppressing us.
Absolutely so, yes.
Got you. 100%. We're on the same team. So here's where our paradigms do not coalesce. I agree. I've read a lot of the material. You're more well read on it than I am. But in the archaics model, I believe that this world is not meant to be saved. I don't believe that there's ever been a golden age in history. I promote to my community that we're pilgrims and sojourners, and that we are spiritual beings just borrowing a fleshly body, passing through this construct, but we're not here to save the world. This world will never be saved at all. So your dark perspective is by virtue of a lot of research, but my dark perspective is research in a totally different avenue. So we do actually agree. I just don't, where I'm going to deviate from you is that I don't believe that saving the world has ever been the objective as to why we're really here. I do believe in a spiritual experience. I believe that we're sojourners, and I believe we're here to learn, grow, mature. And I believe that the Gnostic version is basically my version, that there is some type of demiurge that's controlling this predator versus prey ecosphere. And somewhere down the line, they made a verbal contract with a demon that popped out of a burning bush, and the Jews are the facilitator of the demiurge. This culture is the one that literally serves this entity or this protocol, if you want to switch over to simulation theory, this program of nefariousness. So this is where we diverge, which is totally fine. I agree with you that your logical conclusion is that we must fight and that we need to preserve the integrity of our race. We do all these things, but at the same time, my research in the entire history of the world and all the spiritual religions is that nobody knows shit when it comes to God. That's why I refer to God as the oversoul. I think the Jews got everything bad. Their entire religion is based off materialism and slavery. And I know you know that. I know you know that as well. So
what you're saying comes out of Mithras and Plato, and the idea that the demiurge created a flawed world with imperfect forms, which were intended to replicate the first intellect of the monad, and that it is only by ascending the soul back across the 7 planets, across the great divide, across the cosmos and the stars, and returning to God, that we can reunite with God in the unio mystica and re-experience the completeness, the goodness, the elimination of distance and separation from God, and obtain perfection, and that we are doomed in the corpse of flesh in the material world on the earth, that the earth is a prison planet, a hellish planet. That is exactly the belief of Kabbalah, which took it all over from Plato. Plato got it from Mithras and the Persian religions. I look at the world very plainly and directly and rationally, and I dismiss all those mythologies, which I believe were by under-evolved humans who could not perceive the proper dimensionality of the universe, that could not perceive that everything exists simultaneously because they never evolved to have cognitive receptors which can relate to the immaterial world as everyone else can relate to the material world. Now, my perspective,
you kind of do promote simulation theory in a multidimensional aspect,
but it's inverted from you and David Icke and the movie The Matrix and this whole Platonic conception that we are in the simile of the cave looking at imperfect forms. I see it the other way, that we are what you would call the gods who create this mythology, and this mythology is the simulation. So I see it completely inverted from your perspective, that these things that you're talking about are the simulation, are the abstractions projected out of our mind due to our ignorance and inability to perceive beyond what our senses enable us to perceive. So we are the simulators. We are the ones who create this simulation of gods, which you propose create the simulation. I'm saying it's the other way around. It's human beings who created the gods, who created the mythology of the simulation. But what is real? What can be demonstrated empirically and scientifically? I propose that life forms on Earth are self-assembling molecular structures that have evolved to self-replicate. And what they are doing is converting matter into the molecular, atomic, subatomic structures which form living organisms, which change the environment of the world so that it can sustain greater organic living organisms, and that create food chains and ecosystems by which this matter can be transferred from one living organism to higher, more organized forms of living organisms.
So is this a version of punctuated equilibrium?
I'm not familiar with the phrase.
It's an evolutionary, natural selection, but with basically self-replicating organisms. However, punctuated equilibrium is a theory created by scientists to explain the way that there's been no transitional forms. So they say, well, okay, well, evolution is real, but because we don't have any intermediary links in the fossil record, we can never see where one form actually became something else. It must be punctuated equilibrium. So they're asked, what is punctuated equilibrium? Well, it means that there was external stimuli that created the mutation so fast that there was no time for them to be preserved in the fossil record. So it's just some bullshit, but it's a good explanation of beings all of a sudden creating, changing. So this is something that we talk about in tertiary field phenomena here in archaics, but it has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. But so your understanding of the gnosis, first of all, you did kind of, I didn't want to correct you because you were in your flow, but many of the things you said that I believe, I do not believe, and it meant my community were. Yeah, I agreed to the Gnostic deal as a model to talk, but yeah, those aren't my beliefs at all. However, don't you find it unusual that someone who is promoting so many Gnostic tenets, Professor Jiang, would actually go on record on YouTube and literally say he doesn't know what Gnosticism is in the middle of a diatribe on Gnostic faith? Did you hear him say that?
Yeah, and what he's doing is parroting what I've been saying. And I know that for a fact because he puts it in the exact terms and the exact sequence that I say it over and over again. So this has been drummed in his mind. Adam Green does the exact same thing. He just rattles it off because he is repeating virtually verbatim what he has heard me say. But if I may indulge you, please, I would like to get out some of my ideas about what is really taking place on the earth. Okay. The earth, the structure of life forms like crystals into these assemblages of molecules, which then deviate through mutations, and those which are successful, I do believe, and I think it was Empedocles who originally came out with the theory of survival of the fittest. I think that does play a role, but there are many causes of mutations. Some of them can be abrupt. Some of them could be caused by viruses, by chemical changes, by the intermixture of races. So all of that is a side issue. But the earth, if life were allowed to continue long enough, the matter of the earth would be continually converted into amino acids, into peptides, into assimilable mineral forms, so that the entire earth would eventually come to be alive. It would either be living matter or it would be matter which has been reformed into forms which maintain and sustain life. And that we can see that the atmosphere is respirating between animals and plants with carbon dioxide, very much like our lungs do. So the earth itself is being converted into tissues and organs and into a greater, massive living organism. And I think that the role that hominids can play in that, and perhaps are providentially slated to play in that, is to become the nervous system, the brain, the mind of the earth. And there is a natural competition between different forms of hominids, and there will be those who utilize their evolutionary gifts of intellect, of creativity, of utilizing their hands to change matter, just as our gut changes matter into usable forms to create our form. We have to utilize our minds, our situational awareness of our senses, and our hands to realize that we are in existential danger and that we are about to become extinct. So we have to recognize that danger and realize that our ancestors likewise faced all kinds of dangers in the past and had a will to survive and the ability to reproduce with their own kind that perpetuated our kind. We have to continue that process, and that is precisely what the enemy is doing. I think you have misunderstood me. I'm saying that the enemy camp is doing all this, and therefore it is incumbent upon us to likewise segregate ourselves, to form a military, to form an army, to form research and development teams to create.
So let's assume you're 100% correct. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to say assume, but okay, it's the same scenario. If you want to stop taxes and you want to stop all these things, everybody needs to quit their job on a certain day, and we'll just shut the system down and force them to do this. This is that
would play into their hands.
Yeah, well, it's never going to happen.
That's what they did to Russia to establish the Bolshevik Revolution. And the revolution of 1905 is the Jews led massive strikes. They did the same thing at the end of World War I with Kurt Eisner taking over Bavaria and making it an independent socialist republic, utilizing what do they call it?
That's how they created all the labor parties. There was just socialism taking over so they can come in here and genocide people.
And then they've got China and Russia and North Korea and Iran and other countries waiting in the wings so that when we incapacitate ourselves, they will come in and destroy us. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about creating a core elite of highly intelligent people so that this information, this knowledge that I'm hinted at can be worked upon and not utilized by the enemy like Professor Jiang is doing when he parrots my insights, so that we can preserve this for ourselves and take it in a completely new direction. And that I am telling you that there are people who have cognition between above and beyond the normal methods of perception that were the nature of the people who created all of these ancient mythologies. They interjected into the ether, into supposed empty space, the vacuum, this conception that it is occupied by demons and angels and gods because they couldn't perceive it. They didn't know what was there. They knew that there was this space between material bodies, and they viewed it as being higher and supernatural. I'm saying that we can gain control of that immaterial world, and I have proposals as to how to do it. These are not peer-reviewed. I discussed some of it with Professor Friedvart Winterberg. But this has to be tested. This is simply theory and proposal at this point. But I am not going to release it publicly or attempt to get it peer reviewed because it can be weaponized. And it can be weaponized to create weapons which can act at a distance, akin to the concept of quantum mechanics. And it can happen instantaneously at superluminal velocities, and it can be entirely destructive of the material world of the earth. And it is feasible. It works on paper.
We don't need to be talking about any type of weapons on YouTube. Well, yeah, especially those that are theoretical and not developed yet. And yeah. We already know that anything that you patent, anything that you copyright, anything, even peer review, everything can be stolen. Everything. I mean, you already know the history of Albert Einstein. I mean, all that can be stolen. He worked at the patent office, but I agree. We don't need to go get into that here.
Okay.
But where can people find it?
Because they can't. That's my point. I don't want them to find it. I'm just hinting. I'm loosely hinting. Physicists will understand when I refer to quantum entanglement and the violations of the special theory of relativity.
Understanding the problem and knowing what needs to be done. Okay, those are understanding anything from an intellectual, logical perspective is different than knowing exactly what needs to be done. Let's assume the problem. Let's assume that you know exactly what needs to be done. So you got the easy parts done. The hard part is getting anybody in the world to do what you're talking about. That's the hard part.
Well, that's been the hard. I agree with you completely. That's very insightful and well spoken. And that is the obstacle that I have confronted my entire lifetime. And there is also the obstacle that I don't want to release this because it will be stolen and utilized against us. And one of the difficulties that I faced is that what I was saying 20 years ago, when I was saying that Benjamin Netanyahu is the Messiah, son of Joseph, that they are fulfilling their prophecies, that the president of the United States will serve as the Antichrist, that their goal in these Middle Eastern wars is to drag down America. When I was saying 30 years ago, when Al Gore and Bill Clinton opened up America to China, that China would take over all of our economy and all of our technology, people thought all that was crazy. So there's a process by which what I prophecy, if you want to call it, what I envision of the future, my premonitions, which are enhanced by my understanding of all these things. The difficulty is that people cannot accept it until it is before their eyes. It is now before people's eyes. So perhaps there is a chance for a few who can see and are willing to put in the work to look at my track record to see that I have predicted all these things with 100% accuracy in tremendous detail, showing all of the prophecies, all the work, all the history, all the eschatology, all the philosophy, the geometry, the physics, the theory of relativity, the theory of the Parmenideans, that I'm on to something, and that I was the only person in the world, predicted all these things, and with tremendous accuracy, how the armies would move, where they would go, when they would go, the sequence of events. And they can see this before their eyes now, so that they know that this is not crank stuff. This is not quack stuff. This is real. This is demonstrable. And that people are sensing that we are in immediate danger. They are starting to flee the developed nations, and they are looking for somewhere to go. So I want to tap into that, and I want to give them a destination, and I want to give them a plan. And I want to develop the ways of screening people so that it is not infiltrated. And I want to provide it with a direction. And that direction has to be self-defense. They are utilizing force and subversion and sneak attack to eliminate us, to render us extinct. And no one is going to save us but ourselves. And it has to be done now. And you are absolutely correct that the most difficult phase of all that is to convince people of the need to act, and even more importantly, to act. And I've been telling people that that window is getting shut. And I think, unlike you, and I appreciate and honor your positive attitude towards all that, but I think that for the masses of people, that window has already closed, that they have put into motion. And I know it sounds like defeatism, and I fought against it for decades. But I've got to be honest so that people are motivated, kicked in the ass to do something now. I think that window is closed for the vast majority of humanity, but there is still, and it's disappearing fast, a window of opportunity for us to pursue these things that I'm hinting at so that we can formulate some means of survival. And I do want to protect your channel, and I don't want to say anything that'll get you a strike or anything. So I'm going to leave it at that.
You can't possibly say anything I haven't already said on my channel. So listen, it's just what it is you and I tell my community this a lot. Two souls can be living in the same world. They're just not operating in the same universe. And while I respect your erudition, and you're obviously very well read, and the universe that I've assumed to be true by virtue of my experiences is not the world you live in. I feel I'm more spirit than I am physical, and everything physical is corrupt, and there's nothing corrupt that's going to endure. And I have a very oversoulic vantage point. I mean, I've already been through 26 years of prison. I've survived maximum security. I've had many attempts to kill me. I have survived things I can't even believe I survived. Motorcycle accidents at high velocity, falling off 3-story buildings, all kinds of things. I've been lynched twice. Listen, there's things that happen in every soul's journey that forges their belief structure. My own belief structure is so strong that someone else's erudition is not going to change that. I will modify my beliefs according to my experiences and all that, I just don't feel, Christopher. You and I could be drinking buddies. We could talk about history all day long, but in the end, I'm going to go with everything's really all right, because this physical body belongs to a fallen world, and I'm going to leave this fallen world. It's going to be just as evil as the day I entered it. And I'm passionate just like you are. I can see that you've really been putting a lot of thought to all this. But when it comes to practicality, I think that you're going to come up against tremendous amount of resistance, because what you're proposing, as soon as you started such a project, would instantly come up under the radar of all the organizations that you're trying to hide from.
Oh, it already is. But when you keep saying I, you can only point to your material existence. Geronimo, in his autobiography, talked about the fact that he had killed and witnessed many people dying, but he never saw the escape of what the Christians referred to as the soul. So I think that you have been led to the beliefs that you hold by the enemy. It was the enemy who perpetuated all these beliefs in Western civilization to indoctrinate people to be passively submissive.
That's a real good point, man. Listen, this is an excellent divergence between you and I. I did not realize that you did not believe in the immortality of the soul. So you're
wait a minute. Right. You've got to define immortality. When I say that the universe is timeless, that was.
I don't want to split hairs.
It's not splitting hairs. It is the extension of the material body as masses, fields, and energy throughout that universal structure of was, is, and will be, that is immortal, that always exists. And you can have a very short extension of that. You can have an aborted fetus, or you can have a very long extension of that in a very prolonged life. But both are immortal in the sense that time does not exist.
Okay, all these abstract concepts you just listen. Well, we're gonna shelve all that so we can get to the meat and bones, because this is really interesting to me here. So, do you believe that after your physical body dies, that your personality, your experiences, who you are, every emotional memory, some vestige of you, independent of your body, is going to continue on? So you're either going to continue on or you're not. That's all. It's a yes or no question.
That's not how the universe works.
Okay, that's good. That's all I need to know.
No. Come on, man. Let me speak.
Go ahead.
From one moment to the next, I am an entirely different being in an entirely different universe. Everything has completely changed. There is no permanence between what I was in a previous moment and what I am now. You are utilizing terms which create the illusion that this successive sequence of that which I am only through the ability of the abstraction of language and linguistic symbolism calling I as being something immortal. What you're saying fails logically, because from moment to moment, what I am utilizing my same name, Christopher John Bjerknes, as identifying myself, into which you interject the abstract mythology of the soul, as being the same being when it is measurably, scientifically measurably, completely different from moment to moment. There is no permanence even from moment to moment. Now, will the matter that composes me be conserved? That gets into areas of my physics that I don't want to discuss.
Okay, so I'm going to freely admit that I pride myself on my intellect, but I have absolutely no idea what you just told me. So I'm going to simplify these terms to where I can understand them. And I'm asking you that, well, no, I'm not going to ask you. I'm just going to provide you an example that Magdalenian and Cro-Magnon man believed in an afterlife. This is why they smeared red ochre on the bodies of the dead. This is why they put the females holding hands, the skeletons. This is the way we found them. They dressed the dead and they put food provisions and laid everything out because they had a belief long before the Jew ever existed. There was a belief in an afterlife, that you went somewhere else beyond the grave. And people lovingly buried their predecessors and gave them the things because they had a belief that this world was transient, but they were not. So that's my only point. I believe
all of those are evolutionary products of the fact that we have a will to survive, that we are social animals.
I get it. 100%. I'm not arguing any of that. I'm not arguing any of that. I understand that you and I are very different.
No, you don't understand. This is ingrained into the nature of the human being, and it has a very important role in survival. We feel pain when we see someone die. We are afraid that death will be the end, and we mythologize immortality and an afterlife, but we also very vehemently and strongly struggle to survive, and we get comforted by creating mythologies, poetic, symbolic mythologies, to create an abstract analogy that something that is living can persist somewhere else in some life form. But when you analyze it, it is completely abstract and analogous,
so
just as hyperdimensions
why is it so important for you to try to convince me that my belief is wrong when I'm perfectly accepting the fact that you don't believe in an afterlife? I'm cool with you not believing that.
That's an emotional, irrelevant response to what I'm saying. I'm going to stick to logical discourse, not emotional or ad hominem discourse.
There's nothing emotional about me not caring what you believe. I am cool with you not believing in an afterlife. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that.
I am trying to engage in rational discourse to demonstrate points based upon logical deduction and logical induction.
You're trying to convince me I'm wrong, man, and I'm not trying to do that for you. I mean, I get it. You don't believe in afterlife.
I'm not trying to convince you that you're wrong. I'm trying to arrive at what is rational and what can be tested and what can be accepted as scientifically sound, internally consistent.
You're basically showing that I'm wrong, that my belief that I exist beyond the perimeters of my body, I'm wrong. So
I'm showing that it is not
scientific material all you want. You can. But the fact is as long as I have imagination and empathy and intuition, things that are beyond the visceral, no one in this world will ever convince me I'm not a spiritual being first and a physical body second. And I'm cool with that. But you don't have to try to convince me that my belief is wrong just because it's not scientifically verifiable. It's just I get it. You don't believe in an afterlife? I do. It's a real simple divergence. Doesn't change the fact that I appreciate your erudition. I realize that you're a very well-read individual, and you were invited onto the channel to talk about Professor Jiang and to show your research and how these predictions were basically hijacked, and they're not really his to begin with. Everything else we're talking about is ancillary, and I'm cool with it. I love talking about these side projects, but I'm not emotionally invested. I don't care. I just find these things very interesting.
It is entirely relevant to Professor Jiang and the discussion that we're having to realize that we are molecular structures struggling for survival, and that we have evolved in certain directions and certain forms, because that informs us as to what we have to do if we want to perpetuate our survival. The closest thing to the immortality that you're discussing is bearing children and perpetuating the race. And it is necessary to understand why people have these misguided beliefs as part of their evolutionary development, so that we need to understand that these abstractions are not going to save us, but instead we have to engage in active conduct in the material and immaterial world to save us, that nothing, no one, no supernatural being is going to do that. And the only means that we have to survive this relentless, perpetual attack on our existence is to gain autonomy and to gain authority and control over our own fate, and to engineer our own fate in a rational, predictable manner that will guarantee that we survive.
Okay, it's well said. I can't argue that. I can't argue that because I don't care. I do not agree 100. I don't agree with uniformitarianism, which is a visceral interpretation of reality. I just don't. And it's cool that you do. Many people do. The entire scientific world does. So it's I am always at odds with the scientific community, but it's good.
So are the Palestinians who pray to Allah and then get blown to smithereens.
Yeah,
it never works. It's never worked. It never will work. But the people throwing the bombs survive after the bombs explode. The people who are underneath the bombs are not saved by Allah. They're not saved by Jesus. And we have no measurable, observable existence beyond that unless their children are somewhere else surviving.
Well,
and I think we had better pay very careful attention to those facts.
There's no... I get it. I get it. So if something isn't scientific, it's not real. I understand. If it's not measurable,
not at all.
It's not observable.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we have to depend on data and things which are measurable and testable and repeatable in order to survive. And if we do not do that and instead rely upon mythology, we are going to be like the Palestinians. We're going to be like the Native Americans who disappeared. We're going to be like people after people who have been genocided by this enemy. And the only strategy that can possibly work is to engage in ensuring our own survival in predictable ways. Now, mythology can play a role in that, a very strong motivational role in that, in maintaining the hope and the will to survive. So in that sense, it forms a very powerful, very positive force. And that is why we have evolved to engage in that. But we have also had higher minds throughout history, which creatively develop flint tools, fire, and let's not talk about weaponry, but means by which human beings can survive. And it is that practically which has carried us through, together with our mythologies of hope and supernatural beings preserving us. And then there have always been a class of con men, the priest class, who come in with a piece of chicken liver in their hand and pretend to remove the demon from inside someone. And then that has a powerful psychological impact, which affects the physiology of the organism and promotes hope within that organism, which is positive and constructive, and enables that organism to survive in measurable, testable, predictable ways. All of these things are very complex and integrated. But if we neglect the fact that we exist in a material world, have to gain control over that material world, and cannot rely upon abstract forces which, one, cannot be defined, and two, cannot be observed, we are doomed. And that's exactly what the enemy wants us to do. That's why the enemy gave us Christianity, gave us Islam, gave us Freemasonry, gave us Marxism as utopian delusions that ultimately all produce nothing but our extinction.
Well said. It's a good way to close. Well said.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I respect you, and I think it was a very fascinating conversation, and we put forward our divergent points of view very effectively, and people can relate to it and come to their own conclusions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what links do you need me to share in the description box?
Would you please, if you would, put in links to cjbbooks.com and cjbbooks.substack.com.
Okay, so during the presentation, my moderators are already posting links to your stuff in the chat. They'll be there forever.
Can I again thank you to Michael for setting all this up, and for all the people who have been sending me links and clips and information about Jiang. And let me conclude, I agree with you completely that this guy is a fake, that he is being astroturfed. And I can concur with you 100%. In my 30 years of experience on the internet dealing with astroturfing, boosting, deboosting, the influencer mafia, I have never seen anything remotely close to this, including the Haktui girl.
Listen, it's embarrassing that the only person that compares to him is the Haktui girl. That's it.
I wonder if he's going to put out a cryptocurrency. If he's going to do a rug pull and make himself a billionaire like Donald Trump.
I have no idea. Listen, I don't even know, man. I just
Didn't Haktui girl do that or something like that?
She did, but I think it tanked.
Yeah, but that's the whole plan, is the rug pull.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's inevitable.
All right,
thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'll see you on X. You'll see me in the comments.
Thank you so much. I hope it does well. I think it was a very important discussion, and I appreciate it very much. I appreciate you being forthright and challenging me and affording me the opportunity to clearly express my responses.
Absolutely, man. I'll see you. I'll see you next time. You might be invited back on the channel just to debate the human soul.
Wonderful. I would very much welcome that.
All right, man. Later.
Take care. Thank you again.
That was a good conversation. Yeah, we ain't got to agree on everything. That's a good conversation. But yeah, the Professor Jiang deal, he's right. There's just, it's people who think we're just being overly critical and talking about this guy, man, and making fun of him. And listen, man, you don't understand. Those of us who have been in social media for a long time, we know when something is not right because we know how hard it is. Guys, I got 1,200 videos. 11, I got 1,000. I don't know, 1,160 of them or 70 of them are on YouTube. But I got a lot of other videos. I probably have 1,400 videos altogether. But nothing's ever gone viral for me. And I've got some very good videos. Got, I don't really produce trash material, especially my research. It's not normal for what this guy. Oh, you know what? I totally forgot to show this file. But the predictions deals he did, yeah, he didn't blow it because of the predictions. The predictions were the vehicle that whoever his handlers are using to blow him up with. But yeah, what he blew up with, man, it doesn't even make sense. Let me show you real quick. I got a whole file right here. Just on books. Just on the amount of information in the field for what they're saying he actually predicted. I already showed you the articles. We started this video off me showing you absolute newspaper articles, Israeli articles, where everything about the United States and Israel attacking Iran was already discussed and planned in 2021, 2022, and 2023. 3 years before Professor Jiang even had a channel, even had a YouTube channel. Before he even publicly made the predictions, it was already said in the newspapers over and over and over that Israel and America are doing military operations, getting ready for their plans to attack Iran. So it's just ridiculous. Let me share my screen real quick before we close out. Listen, this entire military scenario with Gog and Magog, the whole involving Russia, involving Iran, involving Israel, United States, it's all in these books. The first one I read was published in 1996 by two authors, and it was published by Hearthstone Press in Oklahoma. I think it's Oklahoma City, but Hearthstone Press. The executive editor is Larry Spargimino. I used to write him. They were going to publish my books. The owner is Noah Hutchings of Southwest Radio Ministries. I used to communicate to these guys. They in the end, after reading my manuscripts, they literally told me, that we can't publish your material. It's too much for our audience. So I started ordering their books, and they were dumbing everything down for their community. The Christian community in Oklahoma and those who bought the books from Hearthstone Press were literally a community that didn't really want all the facts. They wanted the feel good stuff. So they neglected my manuscripts, and I ended up getting published by Booktree. So the Antichrist and Gog and Magog. Here's David's Shield, the Gog and Magog War. Or no, David's Shield is the name of the operation. This is by Joseph Shoshani. Here's The Silence is Broken. God hooks Ezekiel and Gog and Magog. This is by Douglas Burner. Listen, these are just a few of the books. These are little thumbnails. They're hard to look at. These are just some of the books. There's so many of them. And some of these books go back 40 and 50 years about what's going on right now. All of this is just like CJB said, this is long-term planning, and it's never been a secret. So Professor Jiang getting the predictions is just stupid. It's dumb. I don't know why they don't talk about the vice president. He predicted the vice president was going to be a woman. That didn't happen. Trump is going to have a female. Gog, A History of Prophecy. I don't even know how to say Iftikhar. Here's another one, Gog and Magog. I can't read the name. Gog and Magog, Martin Buber Library. Anyway, there's so many of them, guys. There's so many books that talk about this exact scenario. In the end times, America and Israel are going to team up together and attack Iran. And it's going to start a domino effect, doing all kinds of things. And it's just a way to change the international chessboard. So yeah, it's so crazy. So crazy. The whole thing's crazy. But yeah, it's uncanny. In 30 days, he's been on Piers Morgan, Tucker Carlson, Breaking Points, the Greater Eurasia podcast, multiple episodes across these. What is that? Dialogue Works. Somebody said Redacted. He's been on Redacted recently. Endgame, Higher Side Chats. I believe that's Greg. He's not done. He's not done. But the danger is this. You haven't heard me say he's lying to you. He's not. This is how narratives are hijacked. Because the normies, they've all fallen for this shit. They're falling for it. No critical thinking. He's now the vehicle of truth. And this is where it gets dangerous. This is when they begin to weaponize him and begin to control the narrative. You'll start hearing things that are, if you're awake, you're going to start hearing things that, oh no. But the normies are going to buy it. He's the new intelligence agency brat on the deal. There's nothing organic about how fast he blew up. Yeah, you don't get invitations to Piers Morgan uncensored for any reason. Tucker Carlson, you already know Piers Morgan, Tucker Carlson. They're all captured operations anyway. But yeah, that was good. That was a good chat. Let me get rid of this document here. I'm not focusing on Professor Jiang. I don't even care anymore. I'm moving on. You guys already know. I'll stick to a subject and then move on, never go back to it again. I don't care. Unless he makes me care. But I got other things to talk about. We got many other videos on the way. We got another 2026 wacky news and reviews video coming with all kinds of stuff. We have our second. Remember I did the video on the Ark. We got the second Ark video. Remember, it's heavy in calendrics, what the Ark really is, going into 2020, going into the number 2448, Exodus number for Cataclysm. But this video is going to show the number 2040 everywhere in calendrics. It's going to blow your mind. The number 2040 is awesome. This is directly related to the first Ark video. We have agroglyphs video coming up, crop circles, three-dimensional geometry of the patterns that are created with the crop circles you've never seen before. Amazing stuff. They're not just circles, whole complex geometrical patterns created by these orbs that have been documented and filmed. We got several. We got all kinds of videos on the way, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and play that badass intro, which is also going to be the outro right here, because this song here is telling you the truth. And I've been talking too long and I'm hungry. So let's get to it. Love you guys.
Waking up to the same old broadcast lies. Anchor smiling with the scripted alibis. World's a theater when we're all on cue. Directors in the dark deciding what's true.